Greetings, Woodman Spirit here. Just wanted to show you that I'm building a Soviet style axe using it's a Billnas head which is Finnish. As you know, I use Billnas axes, so these are quite rare. So it's built by Billnas in Finland, which went out of business in the 1970s, but I think their forge started in 1647 originally, so it's pretty much identical to the Soviet made axes such as Ishtal and TOZ and a lot of those other axes. Particularly wanted this one because it has quite a thick wedge, and I want to design it for chopping but also for splitting as well. I think it weighs about over 3.5 pounds certainly. It's 3 3/4. It's in fairly good condition. It has a typical almost triangulated eye, quite thick around the eye as well, and it has a reasonable edge on, but this edge is slightly convexed, so I may take it back a little bit further and make it an even better chopper, although I think it probably chopped quite well now. So what I'm choosing to use on it is ash. You know, I've never been totally confident in hickory. I've used obviously a lot of hickory hafted axes, and I've had a lot that split along the grain, particularly when you're levering them out of cuts. So I grew up in the UK and spent a lot of my life in the UK, so we typically use ash, some elm. What other woods did we use there? Yeah, mostly ash and elm, I would say. Oak, yeah. So that would be sessile oak probably. So this is ash. As you can see, it's got a fairly good grain, and I'm not going to be too fixated on the grain because you know, some people get obsessed by having the grain run perfectly north-south on the head, which is okay for leveraging that way, obviously, but this is probably about 25-30 degree angle, quite tight ring, so it's good. I think all these things I'm talking about are important when you're building axes. And it's very easy just to, I think, yeah, you know, just got a chunk of wood or a handle and make sure the grain orientation is okay, but as you know, there's a lot more to fixing an old axe up. So let's say this is cut out of a 4x2 using a bench saw, but the curve cut is cut with a hand saw. Now I use mostly hand tools, even though I've got power tools, and I shape this down with spoke shaven file, so it's a pretty darn good fit. So yeah, you can see there's pretty much no gaps there. Another thing too I should tell you about, I'll show you this side as well. Nothing there. And I've left it like this so that I can carve some shape into the handle, because with these axes they tend to be fairly straight hafted, and I've maybe a couple of inches of thicker material down here, so that's why I've done that. So this slides off easily. And the kerf is cut down 2/3, so it's already too long, so I've measured it and marked it with a pencil. So it goes down about 2/3 into the head, which is correct. I think to be careful of with old axes, particularly, you know, like old Russian axes, they have often been used as wedges and pounded on, and always results in some level of deformation to the hood. To the eye. As you can see here, it's slightly more concave there, and it's dead parallel there. So the challenge here is to carve the shaft so it's on a slight angle, and to compensate for the twist in the head. So when you actually mount the head and you sight it down the, as you can see, sighting it down the haft, it's pretty spot on in terms of holding the cutting edge on the same axis as the shaft itself. So this is an old spoke shave that belonged to my dad. He was a master carpenter, probably came from my grandpa before that. I think I have about 6 spoke shaves of various kinds, just a regular, fairly coarse half round file, and those are the main tools I've been using. So this should finish it with about 27 inch haft. If you notice on these, there's like a lug that comes down to give you a little bit more leverage on the shaft. You know, as you're levering in the wood like this, it tends to help prevent things breaking off. And step back a bit. So I think it's about 28 or something like that. I don't want to get any shorter. And often you see these Russian axes and they're really short, maybe 19 to 21, 22, which is okay, but because I want to use this for splitting as well as chopping, I decided I would experiment with it a bit longer. I mean, typical with me, if I don't like it, I'll saw it off and make another handle, but I have some oak, and I was trying to decide whether to use oak or ash, but in Russia they tend to use more birch and ash. A lot of people think it's because we don't have better quality woods, but you know, time is a good teacher of the durability of these axes, and if the grain is selected properly and the right kind of birch is used, as I've mentioned before, you know, there's probably more advantages using birch than there is hickory. Okay, so I'll, as I continue my progress with this axe, I will show you how it, you know, the finishing stages of building it up, and also have another Russian axe head which has been slightly modified, which I'm going to use primarily as a chopping axe. I think that's about 2 3/4 pound head, so it's a bit lighter than this one and certainly a thinner profile. So again, with that one I may use the oak on that, or if I can find some birch that's dry, I may use that too. Okay, well, thanks for joining me for this brief video, and hope everyone's doing okay and enjoying this July summer weather. Bye for now. So I've roughly shaped out this handle for this Russian, well, Russian type axe, but it's actually a Finnish head. So you see it's quite flat, as in the style of those axes. The edges are just rounded off nice and smooth, so it fits well in the palm. The thing with the flat handle is it allows you to twist the axe out of the wood more so than a rounded handle, obviously. So yeah, I've got the curve cut in there, and I've also put, as I always do, a little divot through there, and the purpose of that is pretty important, because if you force a wedge in and you don't have this this hole drilled in, what will happen, it'll just carry on splitting down here. But if you put that divot in there, acts like almost like an hinge, and it stops it splitting down. And I'll do that on both sides, right? So I've just trimmed the wedge down. made it a bit thinner because I don't like thick wedges that pop out. So I've dipped it in pine tar and just drive it in the kerf. Take it downstairs and pound it in a bit further with a heavy hammer, I think. So here we have the wedge pounded well in. That's as far as it'll go. It's bottomed out. So I'm going to trim it off and just clean it up and then test the axe out, see if it holds tight, and then probably adjust the ergonomics of the handle so get the best out of this flat ash handle. I'll work on the edge, which obviously needs a lot of work on it yet. Okay, I shall report back soon. So I've got this Billnas Soviet pattern axe hafted. Got a nice tight wedge in there, no gaps whatsoever. Nice and clean, nice and tight. The handle format on these is flattened. And that makes it easier to haft these triangulated eyes. So it requires quite a lot of work to get a profile that will provide good grip when you're chopping wood. And I've come up with this kind of shape, which is loosely based on the old Soviet pattern. As you can see, it's squared off. It's convex on this edge and it's convex on here. The sides are flat. And the end is I suppose like pyramidal shape and works well. The thing with axe hafts that I do is I don't have a totally preconceived idea about how they're going to look. I put a haft in an axe and I use it a few times just to see if it feels comfortable and under hard usage. Maybe spoke shave or sand or file a bit more off it and end up with something that really works well. So this is ready for oiling now. But before I oil it, what I'm going to do is let's just see how it's going to chop. As you can see, I've done a bit of work on the edge. And it's I mean, it was convex, but it's I've gone over the edge with a very fine stone just to take any small nicks or flat sections off. You can see. Yeah, you can see the profile there. So I've got some fairly dry birch here, probably 9-inch diameter. So on the first sharpening, it's certainly performing quite well. I mean, it is a wedge-shaped head, and wedge-shaped heads will cut, but you have to make sure the edge profile is good. And they do throw chips well, better than flat ground axes. And this is quite a heavy axe too. I mean, it's a slight bit over 3 3/4 pound head. So yeah, fairly good size for this kind of work. And I think it'll also perform very well for splitting rounds too. It's got the weight. It's got a 27-inch haft. I was aiming for 29, but the best I could get out of this piece of ash wood is 27. Okay, so I'll do a little bit more work on the edge, and in the meantime I'll probably go just down the trail here and find some rounds and see how it splits. Okay, let's do some splitting now. Birch here. Here's the Billnas 3 3/4 pound Soviet style axe. Wedge now finished. Still only put the wooden wedge in here, but I've split probably a cord of wood so far, and it's not even creeped one tiny bit, so I think it's going to be okay. I've just slimmed down the handle a bit and take some of the sharp edges off the rather flat axe, so I'm going to show you how it works now. Nice wood, this European ash. Nice stripy grain. Fairly good edge on here now. Still somewhat convexed, but it's not bad at sticking. Very little sticking on this axe. What I'm splitting today is some large aspen. They were probably 100 to 120 feet tall. They vary from, I don't know, 10 to 20 inches in diameter. Most of it is 3/4 seasoned, so it's when it's fully seasoned it's a pretty hard wood, is aspen. Usually it splits well if it's got a straight trunk. So let's see.